Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. Growing up, I was a bit of a Nintendo kid. I had nothing against Sega, it's just that I got Nintendo stuff for Christmas and birthdays. The Super Nintendo was a big part of that, and I loved playing games like Street Fighter 2 and Killer Instinct. I enjoyed other fighting games and played a lot of them at the time. When the N64 came out, I did think there was a distinct lack of fighting games on there, and it was more known for first-person shooters and of course incredible 3D platform games. But looking back, I did have a few fighting games for the system that I really enjoyed, and then when I did some digging, I realised that there's a lot more than I remembered. So, did I miss out on some great games, or are they best left on the floor in a bloody mess? Well, how about I shut up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. Let's start with ClayFighter 63 1/3, a hilarious play on the whole 64 thing. This is of course a sequel to the 16-bit games. There is a daft story that you'll never bother to read or care about, where basically the Isle of Claymodo has a meteor on it and has some stuff that the evil Dr. Kill needs to make a mutagen. He teams up with the other evil guy, Houngan, to mix science and voodoo to create evil stuff. Meanwhile, a tourist ship that all the other characters are in capsizes and they get stuck on the island and basically have to have a fight for some reason. It makes no sense, but who cares? It's a fighting game. You get a pretty nice mix of 12 characters here. Some return from the previous games like the Blob, Bad Mr. Frosty and Taffy, and you get some all new ones including T. Hoppy, a Commando Rubbit, Kung Pao, a Chinese chef, and even some familiar faces like Earthworm Jim and Boogerman, who's one of the 3 unlockable characters. All of the characters have their own movesets, speed, strengths, as well as special moves and even claytalities, if you can pull them off. The fighting here takes a leaf out of the Street Fighter handbook. You've got 3 punch and 3 kick buttons, weak, medium and strong, and actually the button layout on the N64 controller works actually quite nicely for this setup as it is kind of like an arcade layout. It's just a shame that the D-pad and analog stick are kind of infamous for not being great. As the game takes place in a 3D space, you can also use the shoulder buttons or Z button if you're using the analog stick to sidestep, which can help when dodging attacks. And the attacks are kinda easy to do. It uses Street Fighter setup, so half circles and quarter circles and a combination of kick and punch to do most of your special moves. And each character does have 3 or 4 moves of their own. Some are better at range stuff, other characters, like my favourite, Sumo Santa, are better up close though. You also have super moves. Attacking fills up your blue special bar, and then you can pull off big combos. And the game is all about combos. For the most part though, strategy is not needed. Button mashing does a pretty decent job here. In fact, most of the time when I actually tried to do special moves, they didn't really work. But I think this is more to do with the controller than the game itself. I am playing all these games on real hardware, so I was using the original N64 controller. I did also use my Retrobit controller, but the controls weren't much better. But I have to say, even though this game gets a lot of crap from most people, and while I do acknowledge it's not a particularly great game, it's definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. My friend Warren had it when we were kids and we played the hell out of it, and it was really fun playing this of an evening, going through all the characters and somehow pulling off massive combos. I've never managed to do any of the claytalities though, the finishing moves they added. I've looked up how to do them online and still couldn't. Now there is a sculptor's cut version of the game, so maybe they only work in that. But even the regular hit detection is a little wonky. Some moves don't connect when it feels like they should have, and likewise some hit when they really shouldn't have. There isn't much consistency. Graphics wise, well, it's not the most appealing. The character designs are actually really great, and I do like the crazy mix that you get here. They're all made out of clay of course, but the animation is jerky and it all looks a bit blurry and washed out. But it is cool to see Earthworm Jim and Boogerman in this style. The 3D backgrounds are actually fine, and every character has their own one, and they move nice and smoothly. Overall, I am aware this isn't a great game, but I've got a soft spot for it. I'd say it's worth playing if you've got some friends that can handle some jank and like to play games for fun and not take them too seriously. But if you're mega into fighting games, maybe you want to look elsewhere. Next up is Fighter's Destiny. This is a game that my brother's friend had and he lent it to us, and it's actually a really cool game with some very different mechanics. They didn't really bother with a story here, which honestly I'm fine with. It's just that there's a fighting tournament, so a bunch of fighters from around the world all take part to see who's the toughest. You get your usual mix of characters, each with their different fighting style. Some are fast and weak, some are slow and strong, and everything in between. They each also have different fighting styles, all kind of based on real ones. So you get your karate, kung fu, grapplers, and a load of other ones I don't know the names of. There's only 8 characters to start with, but you do get another 5 to unlock, which is nice. But as you may have noticed by now, it does play quite differently to regular fighting games. Yes, you do still have a health bar and it does come into play, but instead of just having to drain their health to win, this is all about reaching designated point quotas instead. You get different points for doing different things. So a knockdown gets you 3 points, a throwdown gets you 2 points, a ring out, because all the fights take place on small high up areas, gets you 1 point. If the time runs out, it goes to judges and their decision gets you 1 point, and you can also do counters for 2 or 3 points. Also, each character has their own special moves, and if you manage to connect with one of these, you get a whopping 4 points. Usually it's the first to 7 to win, but this can vary depending on your settings and game modes, and it can also mean that fights go on pretty quick. So the fighting here is actually a lot more technical than in most games. This is not one that you can button mash in. You won't last long if you do. There are only 2 buttons to worry about though, punch and kick. Pressing them together will let you grab your opponents and do a throwdown. So it's all about putting together combos of your special moves, and each character has a pretty large moveset. These are more like Tekken, so it's all about pressing directions, double tapping and hitting the attack button. Some moves are shared, like the triple tapping towards your opponent to grab them and jump over them to get around to the other side of them. But most are unique to your character, and you will want to spend time to learn each one if you're going to get anywhere, as the computer AI quickly starts to put up a good fight. You've got specific knockdown moves and throws, but hitting them isn't easy. Moves can be blocked and countered. Sometimes this also gives you a point. And when you do throws, a timer appears. So if you or your opponent presses the throw buttons while they're in the middle of being thrown, and before the timer runs out, they'll land on their feet and you get no points. It's actually really satisfying to do this, and you can even counter some counters. Also, you might fall off the edge of the stage, but grab onto the ledge. If you do, you can actually pull your opponent off the side instead of you falling. I of course found this out the hard way, but it is a really nice touch. It all looks decent. Everything here is polygons with some pretty nice smooth animation, and I saw very little in the way of slowdown. It's all quite sensible too. While some of the characters are a bit wacky, there's no crazy fireballs or super special moves here. It's just regular punches and kicks, but the fast-paced rounds mean that you don't miss those things anyway. The controls do take a bit of getting used to, as everything is very deliberate, so it can feel a bit stiff. But once you've taken a bit of time to learn it, you realise that it actually works very well and it is a lot of fun. I really am a big fan of this game, and it also got a sequel which I've never played, but who knows, if you get a part 2 of this series, maybe I'll give it a go. Here's one that I hadn't played before. It's Flying Dragon from Culture Brain. I love it when these games get dumb generic names, which I guess Fighter's Destiny kind of is as well. Anyway, sadly this isn't a game based on awesome lizards. Instead it's a one-on-one fighting game again, where basically the story is that there's a tournament going on, so you go take part in it. But actually this game has a surprising amount of game modes, all of which are one-on-one fighting. You've got SD mode and virtual mode. I tried virtual mode first, and this gives you the option to play in 2D or 3D. Now the game is all 3D polygons, but what it means is that in 3D mode you can sidestep around your opponents, in 2D mode you play purely on a 2D plane. Then you have 8 generic characters to choose from who are all instantly forgettable. There's Kate, Min Min, Hayato, and I'm already bored. The fighters all play differently, and the control setup is slightly different here. You've got a couple of attack buttons for kick and punch, and you have a dedicated block button, a dash button, and a special move button. And yes, doing various combinations of these lets you do different combos and special moves. I did find that these special attacks were often tricky to get to work. This is a game that I definitely needed to look at a guide for. There's no move list in the pause menu or anything like that, and you'll definitely want to go and do a bit of training or practice, as it does feel a bit strange to play at first. And by that, I mean it feels a bit crappy to play. The fighting is very janky. The characters move with a strange momentum, and it's all quite jerky and hard to be precise with anything. On top of that, the hit detection is very temperamental. It works, but not really as you'd expect it to. As usual with games that are a little bit wonky, the computer opponents tend to have a much easier time hitting you than you do hitting them. But it's also one of those games where when you do get used to it, you can start to have a bit of fun when you learn to play with its janky rules. It's just that it never feels right and feels like it wasn't quite finished. The other game mode is SD mode, which stands for Super Deformed, which is something the Japanese seem to love, taking their characters and making them all basically look like anime kids. SD mode has the same characters, but they've been totally remade, some with completely new looks. It's very random, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I actually kind of like it. This mode is also a bit different, introducing RPG elements, where your chosen character has equipment that levels up, and you can earn and unlock new equipment as you fight through a tournament. And when you start a new tournament, you can equip anything that you've unlocked that suits your play style. So you get things that make you move faster, have stronger throws, give you more health, and so on. It's actually a pretty cool idea. It's just the same that the combat is still pretty crappy. In fact, it's actually a little harder here, as you have the chibi characters with their stumpy arms and legs, meaning they've got worse reach and it's harder to hit your opponents. You've got to be right in their faces. But having said that, I actually did find this mode easier, possibly because I'd been playing it for a while and I was more used to how it all worked. Overall, this isn't really a game I'd recommend. It's not the worst I've played, but you can tell that not a lot of effort went into it. The controls are dodgy, the movement and hit detection isn't great, the graphics aren't bad, but it all just looks awkward when it's moving. I'd say give this one a miss. This is Mace The Dark Age. The story goes that in the 12th century, a bunch of people from different continents sent their finest warriors to defeat Asmodeus, an evil wizard bloke who works in the dark arts and has the evil mace weapon. Whoever gets the mace becomes immortal, so the rest of the world have to stop him before it's too late, even though he already has the mace, so surely he's immortal, well, whatever. This is of course a one-on-one fighter in the 3D variety. It's one that my friend Nick owned, and we'd actually play it quite a lot in between levels of Banjo-Kazooie around at his house. You get 12 characters to choose from, as well as secret characters. Now I actually really like the character designs here. You get a crazy variety of ancient warriors. You've got your generic knight people, executioners, ninjas, monsters, valkyries, monks, and so on. The variety is really cool, and as you'd expect, each character plays differently with your usual differences in speed and power. Each character also has their own weapons that play nicely into their moveset. You've got a variety of swords, knives, maces, hammers, and so on, and they actually feel pretty good to use, and you can really feel the weight behind your attacks. Characters have their own combos and special moves, which are surprisingly easy to pull off. The controls here are actually very responsive, though the actual fighting is a little slow and stiff. You will want to spend a bit of time learning the characters, as button mashing only works for the first couple of fights. After that, the AI really ramps up, and even on the lower difficulties, this is a tough game. I seemed to get as far as Namira, the sexy Persian lady, and then she just absolutely annihilated me for about 15 rounds. You will want to learn to block and counterattack and make use of all your special moves and combos. Your enemies will be pretty good at blocking your attacks and making sure your life is a misery. You do also have finishing moves here. These are actually really cool to pull off, and the button combos to do them aren't crazy convoluted, which is nice. They're not too over the top though, and most just involve you chopping off your opponent's head or slicing them in half or something like that. Oh yeah, I say just chopping someone's head off. Gaming has pretty much desensitized me to everything. Graphics wise, the game actually looks brilliant. All the characters have a ton of detail and some really good animation that's very smooth, and it runs at a really good frame rate as well. The backgrounds are also very well done. Each character has their own, and being a 3D fighter, there are ring outs here as well. Some stages even have hazards in them, like acid or something like that you can walk into, spikes, or even traps that you can use to your advantage, or if you're me, that you can stupidly walk into and probably kill yourself. Something that is a bit odd here is that these strange bars around the outside of the screen. I presume this is down to the resolution they have, but keep in mind I am playing this on the real hardware, so it is something that's always there I guess, unless I've got a dodgy copy. But overall, this is a really solid fighting game. It's a lot better than you'd probably expect, and it is one I recommend trying if you like fighting games, and it's especially good with friends. I used to play it for hours back in the day. Rakuga Kids from Konami is a very unique fighting game. Now the game doesn't bother telling you much of a story, but it's pretty self-explanatory. There's a bunch of kids and they each have their own superhero character that they've drawn, presumably with some magic pens. An evil bully bloke appears and causes trouble in the neighbourhood, so you go around fighting everyone to prove that your creation is the best and to get rid of the bully, who for some reason thinks it's tough to pick on kids. I made half of that up, but that's basically what I gathered from the little story that you get in the game. It's a 2D fighting game here, though I do think everything is still made of polygons, even the characters, thanks to how they animate with the camera moving around, etc. The game has a Street Fighter style button layout. You've got 3 punch buttons and 3 kick buttons, as well as a magic button, which is basically your super moves, and a taunt button. Special moves are easy to pull off using your usual inputs for fireballs and things like that, and it makes the game easy to pick up and play. There's not a ton of characters here, only 9, but that's enough, and they're all really creative, with some cool designs. You get astronauts, cowboys, robots, witches, and my favourite, Bear Tank. It's a bear and a tank. They each have their own special moves, and attacking your opponents builds up your crayon bar at the bottom of the screen. Filling this up lets you do your special attacks, and each character has 3 of them, which are done by using the shoulder button while holding a certain direction. The 3 types are, you get attack magic, which is a big special attack that often does massive damage. These even get a little cutscene and are always really cool to watch. There's counter-attack specials. These should be used when your opponent is blocking and it breaks their block, letting you get in and do some sweet combos. And then there's defensive magic. These don't really do much damage, instead they force your opponent to the other side of the screen, so if they're getting a bit too clingy for your liking, you can get rid of them for a second or two and have a bit of a breather. All of these come in handy, and you also have regular combos you can do, though I do have to say that one of the issues I have with the game is that a lot of the characters feel like they have very little range, so you've got to be very close to make contacts, and combos aren't always easy to put together, so you end up just doing one attack at a time. A better combo system would have been much more appreciated here, and would have made the combat a lot more frantic. Instead, it's kind of slow paced, though definitely not bad. I also did find that the computer would often spam the same move over and over, and there was one time against the robot guy where it did a grab attack repeatedly and I literally couldn't move. It was kind of frustrating. But still, the gameplay is fun, and these things aren't bad enough to ruin it. The graphics are great though, the crayon style looks excellent and the characters are so creative, and I love the fact that it's all incredibly bright and colourful. In fact, I'd probably say it's the most colourful game I've played on the N64, even over Mario and Yoshi. This is another game that is really fun and worth playing. I don't think it's one you'll come back to all the time, but definitely one that's worth checking out if you like this sort of thing. And finally for today, here's Super Smash Bros. This is Nintendo's first entry into the now legendary series that has seen everyone from Solid Snake and Steve from Minecraft scrap it out with Mario, Link and Kirby. But this is where it all started, and even though it is showing its age a little bit, it is still a fun time. So for those who have been living under a rock, Smash Bros. Lets you pick from a variety of Nintendo characters. There's not really a story, though it's pretty much heavily implied that all the characters are toys being played with by kids. There's 12 characters to choose from, including Mario, Link, Samus, Fox McCloud, Kirby, Yoshi, Pikachu and Donkey Kong. There's also 4 unlockable characters that you get by meeting certain criteria. But this doesn't play like your regular fighting game. For starters, there's no life bars. Instead, there's a percentage bar that goes up every time that you're hit. Basically, the higher the percentage, the further you go flying when you're hit, and in this game it's all about getting your opponents off the stage. You tend to either have a time limit in which you need to get as many KOs as possible, or have a set number of lives, and it's both fun. Fights also have up to 4 players in them at once, making things really fast, frantic, and most of all, fun. The controls here are different to regular fighting games as well. There's no crazy button combinations to learn, instead you only have to worry about 2 attack buttons. One does regular attacks and the other does your special attacks. It's a really simple setup that works very well, and surprisingly, it's kind of deep. The attacks you do all depend on the directions you're pressing, so pressing a button on its own just does one attack, whereas holding a direction will do a completely different attack, usually in the direction that you're pointing, so if you want to hit above you, just hold up when you press attack. Equally, with special moves, each direction is also a different special attack, and usually one that goes in that direction, and can often be used to get extra height on your jumps as well if you're in the air. This is especially helpful when you're trying to get back onto the stage. So, for example, Link does a spin attack, Samus does her screw attack, and Pikachu uses quick attack. It's a great system that makes it so easy to pick up and play, but there really is a lot of nuance to it all, and even though it is a simple pick up and play game, each character does play radically different and will suit certain people's fighting styles. As with most fighting games, you'll probably find your favourite and stick to them. Not me though, I like to mix things up because I'm a hipster, and I like playing as all the characters. The stages are all based off of games of each character, and they look great, with familiar music playing as well. What's cool is that stages all have hazards, platforms and other things going on that make this a really fun platform fighting game. And there's even loads of items that appear randomly. You get things like Pokeballs that appear, which make a random Pokemon come out and attack your opponents. And there's what are essentially lightsabers, the hammer from Donkey Kong, proximity mines from GoldenEye, though that's never explicitly said, but we know. You also get healing items like Kirby's Tomato and the heart containers from Zelda. There's just so much going on all the time, and at first it can be pretty overwhelming. But once you've played a few rounds, you'll understand it all, and it's fine to keep track of. In fact, what I used to do when I was playing this game is if someone's first time, rather than going straight into multiplayer, I'd make them play through the one-player mode, as it's a great way of getting used to how everything worked. Graphics wise, it all looks really good, pretty much all the characters look like they've stepped out of their own games, and the varied backgrounds are great. The final boss, Master Hand, also looks decent and animates really well, though I've always been a little underwhelmed by him as a final boss in this series. Oh well, I'll get over it. In terms of game modes, it is a little light here. You basically just have the fighting. There's 3 bonus games, which vary slightly for each character. These are a nice distraction, and actually a good way to learn how to use the character's special moves to get around levels and attack from different angles. But the actual fighting is just really solid and fun. It is true that every other game in the series, including the second one, Smash Bros. Melee for GameCube, infinitely improve on everything, with a lot of people saying that the GameCube one is still their favourite, but this is still no slouch. It's definitely a must-own for the system, but you probably already knew that. Just go buy it. So there you go, a handful of fighting games available for the N64. There are way more out there, so I can certainly do a part 2 of this in the future if you want to see more. As always, tell me your favourite fighting game for the N64, or any other system for that matter, in the comments below. On screen now you can see where you can follow me or get hold of me, so why not do so? I've got loads of great content for everyone to enjoy. And now, what's left for me to say is thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.